Okay, looks like we're live. Well, Realcomm Live, here we are. Hey, Charlie?
Yeah, this is nice. This is my first time at Realcomm Live.
Okay,
so
okay.
Great.
My first time sitting in this environment. It's pretty cool, huh?
So, it is nice.
So, Charlie, let's do introductions first. So, I guess I'll lead us off. So, hi, everybody. My name's Scott Cochrane. I'm with Cochrane Supply Engineering based out of Detroit, Michigan. And we are a distributor, and we sell building automation products to systems integrators, master systems integrators, mechanical contractors. We carry a whole variety of product lines and services along with that. So, Charlie?
Sure. So, Charles Buscarino. CEO of the Clarient Group. We do smart building design and consulting, as well as traditional design and consulting, AV, IT, security, two-way radio, first responders, cellular DAS, et cetera. But the good news is we've just been recently acquired by Canon Design, which rounds out and expands our capabilities tremendously. They are an architectural engineering firm. It brings along sustainability, facilities operations, data modeling, data visualization, and so on. So we're really excited about that, to be able to bring more to the smart building environment.
And we're here at Realcomm, and earlier today we both participated in the Smart Building Integrator Summit, where we talked about topics around the integrator, the systems integrators. Quite a few takeaways from that.
Sure.
I would say one of my first takeaways was how I felt like that where we feel like we're not getting anywhere with technology. I felt like today there were some very confident people talking about how they're using technology, especially with the AI. I felt like, and not to just dive into the AI conversation, but I felt like that was one of my biggest takeaways. Do you feel like in your role and what you're headed towards, are people asking you for it yet? Like your owners, the people, and what do they think they're going to get from it today? Like, are they thinking we can do more or less than we can actually do based on some of what you've learned today?
So they're always asking about AI or even a view into the future. What's next? What's on the horizon? Where should I be positioning, and so on? I think in today's conversation about AI, it was really interesting that when we're looking at smart buildings and we're looking at the volume of data that's available, the takeaway today was the only way to really parse it is to start using AI models. And there was a message to the integrators to say, if you want to stay in the game and be competitive and so on, this is a technology you need to embrace. I think it also reinforced other points in the conversation that were in the summit today, which is about the importance of data, okay? That you need to have clean data, you need to have, there's messages of ontologies and so on. That's table setting, but the idea that AI is going to be the differentiator and don't be wary of it, but you better start embracing it, was key.
Does it feel like when you're consulting end users that they're like, we want to do all this AI, and then you're like, well, you don't even have control of your data? Does that seem to be the kind of the biggest issue with getting us to that state where we can utilize the AI? Or what are some of the other conditions you run into that's going to be a limiting factor?
So what's really interesting is it's almost like a progression. So AI is where they ask about. The data is the reality. But even more fundamental, they haven't defined where they want to go. I mean, a big piece of today's conversation was defining the outcomes. What are those things and setting technology aside, I need to define where I want to be, and then we can figure out how we're going to get there. And part of the conversation as well was, it takes a village, right? So it's not where do I want to go, but it's getting ownership to embrace the idea of, I need HR and facilities and marketing and leasing and IT and so on. When you get the consensus from that group, and they align behind the outcomes, they become the arbiters of the end state. And it creates this mechanism that can support, frankly, the integrator, because we're giving him clear direction, and we're helping him and the rest of the design team understand what ownership has embraced. And then the data and so on that needs to go with it to make it happen.
Yeah, as a consultant, I mean, maybe this is a statement or a question, but Is that seem like that's a big part of your now job, is to essentially help them understand what outcomes they can achieve? Is that
for
end
sure.
up, you find yourself in that role?
I find it, I almost have to do a little bit of deprogramming and then reprogramming. And the deprogramming is for those who decide that they need to embrace the idea of a smart building. It's not about a particular product. It's not about going out and surveying all the vendors and the top names and figuring out what they offer and then matching your outcomes to what their service offering is. It's really about setting it aside and saying, who are we? What's our identity? What's our brand? Where do we see ourselves? What's our differentiator?
What's our use case?
And then from that, these are the use cases that define that. And now you have a basis to do a authentic and realistic selection of who the vendor is, or vendors, because it's likely not one because it's not a mature market, that can help you get there.
Changing the subject a little bit, Charlie, you mentioned in your role, you are kind of on top of the construction group in terms of your owner. You're an owner's representative. You're working directly with the owner to achieve their goals. So when it comes to an integrated system, in the stack of contractor subs, MEPs, the whole 9 yards, tell me, how do you navigate through all those layers? Because typically your integrator is going to be buried under like a Div 16 or like a mechanical or something. So how do you do that? Is there a magic to that? So
in order for any of it to work, you need to start at the top of the stack and have the owners buy in. Because he's the one who sees the outcome, he or she sees the outcome, and so they're the driver and the arbiter of making sure all of this flows through. The next thing, which is interesting, is when we're doing a smart building, we never tell anybody. We never have the conversation. We don't tell anyone that this is a smart building. Because it brings sometimes fear, certainly padding, ambiguity.
When you say you don't tell anybody, are you talking about like the general, the mechanic? Like you never use the word. It's just a scope of work. We're going to plug it in.
And that's the key. So when you take that approach, then your conversations with the entire stack is giving them the piece that they need in order to be successful at every step along the way. And just say, hey, we're going to do this really cool project, and it's going to have some pretty cool outcomes. Let's go.
Got it. So we don't try to educate everybody. We simply try to keep them on task.
Help them do their job, which they're very good at, okay? And help them do it as efficiently and effectively as possible. And then you bring in an MSI or someone who kind of ties it all together, and he's the one who really knows what we're trying to, stitch together. But for the other trades, they're just doing what they do well.
Yeah, very interesting. Okay, another question. Sorry, I got a lot of questions, different angles for you. So, from an owner's perspective, as the company that is doing, you're the owner's rep, you're working directly for the owner to help them achieve these outcomes. Who on the owner's side, and I'll just say by title, who typically is hiring you?
It's interesting. Usually, when it's been successful, it's an alignment of multiple groups, right? We've had projects, a lot of the projects that this audience does is in the building operations and efficiencies, but we've had projects where we were hired on strictly the experiential side. We didn't touch the building systems. In that case, it was facilities and HR, all right? In other cases, it's sometimes it's IT is the owner of the outcome, but the business side of it, which is really the driver when you start looking at a smart building side, is other groups, facilities and frankly, leadership and ownership.
Awesome. Well, we're almost out of time. I guess, Charlie, last question from me is there any part of the program you're looking forward to while you're here? What are you going to go check out when we get out of here?
There's so many moving parts, but what I'm really looking to see is how have people evolved? Because there's the challenge of trying to deliver these things. And each year it seems like there's a new level of experience, a new level of lessons learned, trying to get my hands around what those are and who's out front.
I agree, and I feel like Jim Young has done a fantastic job of bringing a whole bunch of different use cases around AI here, and I'm really looking forward to checking that out over the next couple of days. So,
likewise.
Great. Well, everybody, I hope you enjoyed our segment, and thanks for having us.